Hi everybody, it's Mrs. Mayhugh again, and I'm here to read you another story. Today I have picked out Ada Twist, Scientist. I really like these stories. There are others in the series, Rosie Revere, Engineer, Iggy Peck, Architect. I like this one in particular because it always reminds me of my friend, Mrs. Janellis, at work. And that's because the little girl in the story, Ada, is named after a woman that lived a long time ago called Ada Lovelace. And she was an amazing person because she was fantastic at math and loved doing math and helped build one of the very first computers. So whenever I read Ada Twist, I think about Ada Lovelace and then I think about Mrs. Janellis. So let's get started. Ada Marie, said not a word till the day she turned 3. She bounced in her crib and she looked all around, observing the world, but not making a sound. She learned how to climb and she made her big break with a trail of chaos left in her wake. She ran through the day chasing each sound and sight, and she didn't slow down till she conked out at night. Whew. Her parents were frazzled, but tried not to freak, as Ada grew bigger and still did not speak. Clearly, young Ada, with lots in her head, would have something to say when it ought to be said. That's just what happened when Ada turned 3. She tore through the house on a fact-finding spree, and she climbed up the clock just as high as she could, and her parents yelled, "Stop!" as all good parents would. Ada's chin quivered, but she did not cry. She took a deep breath and she simply asked, "Why? Why does it tick and why does it talk? Why don't we call it a granddaughter clock? What are the pointy things stuck to a rose? Why are there hairs up the inside of your nose?" She started with why and then what, how, when. By bedtime, she came back to why once again. She drifted to sleep as her dazed parents smiled at the curious thoughts of their curious child who wanted to know what the world was about. They kissed her and whispered, "You'll figure it out." Her parents kept up with their high-flying kid, whose questions and chaos both grew as she did. All of these questions she's asking up here. What, why, how, when, why? How can I find it? What does it? How? How does it? Will it be the same? What if I? That's a lot of questions. Whew. Oh my. Is that on the camera? Sorry. Even Miss Greer found her hands were quite full when young Ada's chaos wreaked havoc at school. Ooh. But this much was clear about Miss Ada Twist. She had all of the traits of a great scientist. Ada was busy that first day of spring, testing the sounds that make mockingbirds sing, when a horrible stench whacked right up her nose, a pungent aroma that curled up her toes. "Zowie," said Ada, which got her to thinking, what is the source of that terrible stinking? How does a nose know there's something to smell? And does it stink if there's no nose to tell? She rattled off questions and she tapped on her chin. She'd start at the start, where she ought to begin. A mystery, a riddle, a puzzle, a quest. This was the moment that Ada loved best. Oh, she's getting to work. Whew. Ada did research to learn all she could of smelling and smells, both the stinky and good. One hypothesis Ada thought could be true: the terrible stink came from Dad's cabbage stew. Yeah. She tested and tested, but soon Ada knew it was time to come up with hypothesis 2. Then, zowie! The stink struck again. Just like that. Hypothesis 2, it's caused by the cat. The cat couldn't make such a stink on its own. It needed perfume and some fancy cologne. So young Ada tested. That test was a flop. She started again, but her parents yelled, "Stop!" Ooh. Oh, they look mad, don't they? Ooh. Ada Marie, to the thinking chair now by the time we count 3. Ooh. Enough, said her mother. That's it, cried her dad. Her parents were frustrated, frazzled, and mad. Why? Ada questioned. Her mother said, no. What? Ada queried. Her father said, go. You've ruined our supper. You've made the cat stink. Enough with your questions. Now sit here and think. She looked at her parents and her heart turned to goo. Poor Ada Twist didn't know what to do. She sat all alone by herself in the hall. It doesn't look all that fun. And Ada, once more, could say nothing at all. And so Ada sat, and she sat, and she sat, and she thought about science and the stew and the cat, and how her experiments made such a big mess. Does it have to be so? Is that part of the success? Our mess is a problem, and while she was thinking, what was the source of that terrible stinking? Uh-oh, I think Ada's starting to do a little something here on the wall. Oh. And she asked a small question, and then she asked 2. And each of those led her to 3 questions more. And some of those questions resulted in 4. As Ada got thinking, she really dug in. She scribbled her questions and tapped on her chin. She started with why, and then what, how, and when. And by the end of the hall, she reached why once again. Wonder what this hall is going to look like. Oh, she has filled it up with her questions. Her parents calmed down, and they came back to talk. They looked at the hallway and just had to gawk. No patch of bare paint could be seen on the wall. The thinking chair was now the great thinking hall. They watched their young daughter and sighed as they did. What would they do with this curious kid who wanted to know what the world was about? They smiled and they whispered, we'll figure it out. And that's what they did, because that's what you do when your kid has a passion and a heart that is true. They remade their world. Now they're all in the act of helping young Ada sort fiction from fact. She asks lots of questions. How could she resist? It's all in the heart of a young scientist. Oh, look how they've set it up for her. So she can do all of her experiments and all of her thinking. Ooh, they're really helping her out. And as for that smell, what can Ada Twist do but learn all she can with her friends in grade 2? Will they discover the stink that curls toes? And that is the question. And someday, who knows? Now, the thing that I like about these books is at the end of every one, she shows the whole class again. And if you've read the other books, you can find some of our friends. So here's Iggy Peck, architect, and Ada Twist sniffing on a hot dog to see if that's the stinky stink. And here's Rosie Revere, engineer, helping out too. Okay. I really look forward to seeing you all again in person. It's been really nice to see a lot of you show up on the Zoom meetings when I've been at school working. I love seeing your faces. I love seeing you light up. So I hope you have a great afternoon, and I'll see you soon.